Published in 1850, The Scarlet Letter is one of the most important works in American literature. Written by Nathaniel Hawthorne, the novel is a powerful exploration of sin, guilt, punishment, hypocrisy, and redemption set in 17th-century Puritan New England. Through the tragic story of Hester Prynne and the symbolic scarlet letter she is forced to wear, Hawthorne critiques the harsh moral judgment of Puritan society and examines the complex nature of human conscience. Blending psychological realism with rich symbolism, The Scarlet Letter remains a timeless meditation on morality and identity. The novel opens in a rigid Puritan settlement in Boston, where the community gathers outside a prison. The grim setting immediately establishes the moral severity of the society. Punishment is public, and shame is used as a tool for enforcing conformity. From the prison emerges Hester Prynne, holding her infant daughter, Pearl. Hester has been convicted of adultery and is sentenced to wear a scarlet letter A embroidered on her clothing for the rest of her life. The letter is meant to mark her as an adulteress and serve as a permanent reminder of her sin. Despite the crowd's cruelty and judgment, Hester stands with quiet dignity. She refuses to reveal the identity of the child's father, protecting him even at great personal cost. This moment defines Hester as a character of strength, resilience, and moral complexity. Hester lives on the outskirts of town, isolated from society but earning a modest living through her skillful needlework. Though the scarlet letter is meant to humiliate her, Hester embroiders it beautifully, transforming it into a symbol of individuality rather than shame. Over time, Hester becomes a figure of quiet compassion. She helps the poor, nurses the sick, and endures public scorn without resentment. Gradually, the meaning of the letter begins to change in the minds of some townspeople, from adulteress to Abel, or even angel. Hester's punishment, however, is not only external. She wrestles internally with guilt, loneliness, and the rigid moral code that condemned her. Unlike the community, Hester develops a more nuanced understanding of sin, empathy, and forgiveness. Hester's daughter, Pearl, is more than a child. She is a living symbol of Hester's transgression. Described as wild, intelligent, and otherworldly, Pearl constantly reminds Hester of her past. She is fascinated by the scarlet letter and often questions its meaning. Pearl's behavior unsettles the Puritan community, who see her as unnatural or possibly demonic. Yet Pearl also possesses a sharp moral intuition. She instinctively senses the hidden guilt of others, especially Reverend Dimmesdale. Pearl represents truth, freedom, and the natural consequences of sin. She cannot be tamed by Puritan discipline because she exists outside its rigid moral framework. Hester's long-lost husband, Roger Chillingworth, arrives in the colony shortly after her public shaming. He conceals his true identity and vows to discover the man who fathered Hester's child. Chillingworth becomes obsessed with revenge, disguising his malice under the appearance of a learned physician. His fixation transforms him into a sinister figure, feeding on the suffering of others. Hawthorne portrays Chillingworth as someone who commits a greater sin than adultery, deliberate cruelty, and the violation of another's soul. His quest leads him to Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale, the town's beloved minister. Suspecting Dimmesdale's secret guilt, Chillingworth insinuates himself into the minister's life, slowly tormenting him psychologically. Reverend Dimmesdale is the novel's most tragic character. Though outwardly revered for his holiness and eloquence, he is inwardly consumed by guilt. He is Pearl's father, yet he lacks the courage to confess his sin publicly. Unlike Hester, whose punishment is visible, Dimmesdale's suffering is internal. His guilt manifests as physical illness, self-punishment, and emotional torment. He clutches his chest, suggesting an invisible scarlet letter branded upon his heart. The contrast between Hester and Dimmesdale highlights Hawthorne's central argument. Hidden sin corrodes the soul more deeply than acknowledged wrongdoing. Dimmesdale's inability to reconcile his public image with his private guilt slowly destroys him. Through its characters, The Scarlet Letter exposes the hypocrisy of Puritan society. The community condemns Hester while praising Dimmesdale, unaware that he is equally guilty. Hawthorne critiques a system that values appearances over truth and public conformity over genuine morality. The novel suggests that rigid moral systems fail to account for human complexity. Sin, Hawthorne implies, is universal, and compassion is more redemptive than punishment. In contrast to the oppressive town, the forest serves as a space of emotional honesty and freedom. When Hester and Dimmesdale meet in the forest, they speak openly for the first time about their love, regret, and suffering. Hester removes the Scarlet Letter, momentarily reclaiming her identity and happiness. Sunlight shines upon her, symbolizing hope and renewal. Pearl, however, refuses to approach her mother until the letter is restored, reinforcing the idea that truth cannot be escaped. The forest represents nature's moral law, more forgiving and authentic than the rigid rules of society. As the story reaches its climax, Dimmesdale finds the courage he has long lacked. During a public gathering, he mounts the scaffold where Hester once stood and confesses his sin before the entire community. Revealing his scarlet mark, Dimmesdale acknowledges Pearl as his daughter and claims Hester as his partner in sin and suffering. Freed from his burden of secrecy, Dimmesdale dies shortly after, redeemed through truth and acceptance. Chillingworth, deprived of his victim, withers and dies as well. His life, defined by revenge, loses purpose once his obsession ends. After Dimmesdale's death, Pearl is transformed. No longer a symbol of sin alone, she becomes capable of empathy and human connection. Hester eventually leaves the colony, but later returns, voluntarily wearing the Scarlet Letter once more, not as a mark of shame, but as a symbol of experience and wisdom. In her later years, Hester becomes a counselor to women, offering compassion and understanding to those trapped by societal judgment. The Scarlet Letter evolves into a complex symbol representing sin, strength, suffering, and redemption. The Scarlet Letter is rich in symbolism. The letter A changes meaning throughout the novel. The scaffold represents public judgment. The forest symbolizes freedom and truth. Light and darkness reflect moral clarity and hidden guilt. Central themes include sin and redemption, identity, hypocrisy, gender roles, and the conflict between individual conscience and societal law. Hawthorne challenges readers to consider whether morality should be enforced through punishment or guided by empathy. The Scarlet Letter endures because it speaks to the timeless struggle between judgment and compassion, secrecy and truth. Through Hester Prynne's quiet strength and Arthur Dimmesdale's tragic weakness, Nathaniel Hawthorne explores the consequences of sin and the possibility of redemption. The novel reminds readers that moral growth often arises from suffering, and that true redemption requires honesty, courage, and compassion. More than a story of punishment, The Scarlet Letter is a profound meditation on the human soul, one that continues to resonate across generations. Thank you for watching. Your support helps this channel grow. Please like the video, subscribe, and comment your favorite book so I know what to summarize next.